ladies and gentlemen? It's Kevin Jackowitz here with the Kaged review, and I wanted to add another section to my life. And this one I wanted to talk about the effects of a broken family. A broken family is something that I kind of came out the gate with. By the time I was 4 years old, my mother was already remarried to my stepdad. And my real dad, I have very, very few memories of, and most of them involved him being in a bar or being absolutely shit-faced. I remember one time I went to visit him, and one of our visits, it was literally, he went into a bar, got shit-faced while I was sitting out at a bench. And, what can you say about something like that? He didn't want to be a dad. He didn't want the responsibilities. So that is what it is. But it does make you kind of lose a little sense of self when you have a parent, especially a boy's dad, who isn't in the picture. And my stepdad, he was Vietnam vet, very hard-nosed, didn't know how to deal with children. He didn't raise his own children. He had 3 that he really didn't partake in their lives that much. He didn't like the responsibility. He didn't know how to handle emotions. He was very closed off. And so these are all very bad qualities to have in a parent figure. He didn't mean anything. There was no malice. He just didn't know any better. And he was a very angry man. And he too liked to drink a lot. And so, my mom seemed to surround herself with guys that were just absolutely no fucking good for her. And of course, her excuse is that, she needed the financial security. Well, what do you gain? What do you lose? But, the effect is longer lasting than that, because especially back in small town Indiana, where family was everything for most people, I didn't have that, and I didn't understand it. And my parents both abandoned me when I was, still considerably young. I was like 16, 17, and the big problem with that, as I've said many times, is I was sheltered from the world. And that makes a world of difference. When you're prepared for the world and you go out young, that's one thing. But I wasn't. I had 0 real world experience. And so, you go through a time of questioning, why wasn't I good enough for them to care about me? The whole thing, boo-hoo. Which is really what it comes down to. People have gone through way worse things than that. Hell, I've gone through way worse things than that. But the thing is that the effects are kind of longer lasting than you would expect. And even today, as a 40-year-old man, people ask me about my family, and I just kind of have to shrug and give them a weird face, because I don't know. There's things they ask me about my father's side of the family, and I couldn't be able to tell them. Doctors ask me about simple things like medical history from my family. I don't know either side of my family's history. I don't know anything about virtually either side of my family. And in social settings, especially now with Nicole, me dating my girlfriend and being very much part of her family, it's really awkward at times when people ask me about stuff, and it sucks because they don't realize that they're opening up way more than they meant to, and you have to explain to them, well, I don't know because my family wasn't around. And, then you get the whole, big puppy dog eyes from everybody, like, oh, and it's nice that they're trying to be empathetic or sympathetic. But, it really does create awkward situations. And it's like, it's a constant reminder that you've never had a normal childhood, you've never had a normal family life, you don't know what it's like. Um, and in dealing with people, you probably have a distorted way of reacting and dealing with people in situations, even in relationships. Um, Nicole and I, we're doing really good nowadays, and as a matter of fact, since we've been back, I think I've only had one crossword to her, um, and we've been together since October. So, I mean, that's pretty good because honestly, a lot of couples, they're at each other's throats, or they don't trust each other, whatever the case may be. Um, but when we first started out, man, I didn't know how to be part of a healthy family because I didn't have a healthy family. And it took being around her family, really, for a lot part of it, to kind of adjust to family life, adjust to being around, this big extended family where they actually go out and they do shit together, because we never did. Um, it was funny, we were talking about certain things that I've never done, and Margot, Nicole's mom, just simply could not believe that these are things that I'd never done. I forget specifically what we were talking about, but it didn't seem like that big of a deal to me. But one of the comments she made was like, "What kind of childhood do you have?" To which she kind of knows, but the answer is, "Well, I didn't have much of a childhood." And it's really one of those things that having a broken family, like I said, it affects such a large part of your life that you don't even see sometimes. And it's one of those things that you never fully get rid of. It's never fully behind you because it's going to be brought up in conversation. It's something that's going to be brought into a focal point at some point. And then, of course, you get the curious people who just want to ask you about it and find out. And then you have to rehash the story about how your real dad was a piece of shit who did drugs, and he was a severe alcoholic and didn't want kids, abusive to his wife. You have to, talk about how your mom and your stepdad didn't care to raise you past a certain point and left you to fend for yourself way too early and unprepared. You have to explain how even in the family, they were very broken, and the family members within both my mom and my dad's side of the families, they just didn't talk to each other. And I don't know why that was. So I know my mom's side, they had some pretty horrendous shit go through the family, and some really bad skeletons in the closet. And I think some of them just didn't want to deal with what had happened, and so they isolate themselves and they live their comfortable little lives, and they just pretend like everything is just fine, even if it's falling all around them. And with my real dad, I mean, he was just a piece of shit. There's no two ways to color it. I'm quite sure that most of the family just didn't want anything to do with him past a certain point, including myself and my brother. It's one of those things when you put in perspective, it's not that big a deal at the end of the day. It's really not. I see these kids that, they have parents from a broken home, they split up and whatever, and it's so devastating to their lives. And, I've never understood that because I feel like, if anything, it's a nuisance. It's not, something that's like devastating to your life. It's like, okay, I have to keep fucking explaining this, blah, blah, blah. But it's not like life altering to me. Parents get divorced all the time. Divorce rate's over 50% now. So it's not something that should really be screwing people up, to be very honest. And it does. I don't really get that. I don't understand how kids just They feel like it's like the worst possible thing that could happen to their lives. Trust me, it's not that big a deal. But it is something that, is a recurring frustration at times. And something that reminds you that you don't have a normal life, that you're never going to be quite fully normal or average. Since some people don't like the word normal, I would say the average person. But, it's just a matter of dealing with it, maybe sometimes talking to your parents to find out what happened and why each person decided, and then building the truth from what they're telling you, because believe me, there are going to be a couple of very one-sided conversations there. Yeah, man, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not really that big of a deal. But I wanted to talk about it and talk about how it kind of affects you and how, things pop up at the end. Just kind of food for thought. So ladies and gentlemen, that is my post for now. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, subscribe, and share. My name is Kevin Jackowitz, Kaged Nation, out.